Today we are going to discuss how to decrease the fights in your relationship. So on this channel, I make videos for people who are insecurely attached, meaning fearful avoidant, anxious preoccupied, and dismissive avoidant. So the common dynamic where you will have a lot of fighting are the dynamic of insecure attachment styles, because the secure people have a way of processing their emotions and being able to communicate in ways that is not triggering or triggering less to the partner who is receiving that communication, and they have good conflict resolution skills. Meanwhile, the insecure attachment styles, be it the anxious preoccupied, fearful avoidant, or dismissive avoidance, have not learned that because they didn't observe conflict that went well during childhood. So for example, the anxious preoccupied individual could have experienced volatile conflict. They would have people pleased through the conflict. So they might experience a lot of disconnection from their partner, and that triggers the wounds of abandonment, a lot of fear, and then they protest by saying things like, you don't want me around, you never call me, you're always late from work. And that is very triggering to the partner who tends to be more on the avoidance side, and the avoidant partner gets then triggered into their wounds of I'm not enough, there is something wrong with me, and they start to believe that there's nothing I can do in this relationship that will satisfy my partner. So this is just futile. I should just move away from this relationship because my partner is miserable, I'm miserable, and we're fighting a lot. It just doesn't feel good. And this sabotages their connection. And a part of it is just healing through communication. If we can get this communication correctly, then we can really sort through like 50% of the fights. The other stuff has to be worked through with a coach or a course or something that is going to target those wounds of the anxious preoccupied, like the I'm abandoned, I'm excluded, I'm not enough, I'm disliked, I don't belong, which then trigger all of these emotional reactions. Because you can imagine that if we have these core wounds that are underneath the surface, and everything our partner does is going to make us feel something, right? So it's going to trigger us. That is the sign that we have an insecure attachment styles, because we take so much of what happens outside of us extremely personally. We take other people's behavior personally and make it mean something negative about us. And there we know that we have some core wound that has been triggered. So this is not only for the anxious preoccupied and the dismissive avoidant. This can also work for any type of relationship, be it insecure or secure relationship. However, like I said, secure people already have these skills. So what are these skills? I'm going to make it super, super basic, so not too complicated, so you can take this and just apply it in your life. Okay, so most of our arguments come from not so much about the content of what is discussed, but the disconnect that happens when we are unheard. When we are unheard and there is this disconnection, we in our mammal brain start to believe that the other person is against us. They are not on our team anymore. They are unsafe. So the one partner usually believes that I am giving more into the relationship, I am showing up more into the relationship, and something is unfair and I'm unheard and I'm unsafe in this connection. And when the other partner fails to hear that and really recognize that, hey, my partner right now feels like they are under threat. And this often happens in this anxious, preoccupied, and dismissive avoidant, or fearful avoidant and dismissive avoidant connection, because the more anxious partner will protest. It's called a protest behavior. So they will say things like, oh, you come home late all the time, you don't want me, you don't love me like I love you, nothing I do is meeting your requirements, you need to go and date somebody else. And then the dismissive partner will then shut down, and they will not want to listen to that. Therefore, the anxious partner keeps on feeling exasperated. Instead of feeling more heard and soothed, the more they try to get their partner to show some kind of sign of affection, because a lot of the time fearful avoidance and anxious preoccupied individuals count on the other partner to kind of like wake up and say, you know what, no, you matter to me, I see you, I love you, I want to be here, I'm sorry. And when the partner doesn't do that, they shut down more and more and more and more, then this fuels the pursuer, the anxious preoccupied or the fearful avoidant even more, and they get more exasperated and they get louder and louder and louder. Usually when people get louder, it means that they are not feeling heard. So something in that is not feeling heard, right? So they will also bring up things from the past to try to prove their point. And a lot of people don't understand that. Like, why does my partner keep on bringing up all this stuff and they don't know how to fight fair? And the reason for that is that something that is happening right now also happened in the past, and they're feeling invalidated in this moment. Okay, so basically it means that I'm trying to show you and tell you something that I am hurt. This is hurting me now, and it has been a pattern, and you're not showing me that you can hear me, that you can understand me, and I'm worried that this is going to continue happening in our relationship because it has been happening in 2002, in 1999, wherever in the past in the relationship, and they're trying to show you that this is the pattern that has been hurting me. Please hear it, please do something about it so that we don't have to continue with this pattern. But the person receiving this information is going to feel extremely overwhelmed because they're being shouted at, and they don't have the skills to say like, hey, listen, I want to hear you, I'm here, I understand you're upset, let's talk through this calmly, because I really struggle to be in situations that are so loud. It makes me shut down. So can we please be calm and quiet, and I just want to hear your feelings. Let's not blame each other. Let's just work through this calmly. Okay, so the dismissive avoidant doesn't even know that they can say that, so they just shut down and go away, and then they stonewall because they don't believe that whatever they say is going to make a difference. Because often they try to say something, and the anxious preoccupied or the fearful avoidant are going to counter that with so much proof of how it is invalid. Okay, because they're again working from those core wounds and also trying to prove a point so that they can create change in the relationship. So this just gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and the pursuer is going to get completely out of control, and then the other person is most probably going to pull away, or a fight is going to ensue, and then you're going to have that separation where there is a lot of distance, maybe for days or even weeks. For some people it's actually months. So, and then they come back together, and then the whole cycle starts all over again. All right, so from what I explained, I hope that you can see that the biggest problem here is the disconnect that feels unsafe, and the person feels unheard, the pursuer feels unheard. So in any relationship, what we can do is help the person to first get heard, validate their feelings. And I know that a lot of people will balk at that, especially dismissive avoidance, because they will say like, oh, but this is not my fault. I didn't do this. They are incorrect. This is unjustified. Usually the dismissive avoidant will be triggered into their shame wound. Like, there is something wrong with me. And they will try to defend themselves quite aggressively against that by really shutting down or pushing the other person's feelings away. That is going to cause the feelings of unsafety and disconnect to grow more and more violent in the relationship. So the dismissive avoidant really needs to understand that the other person's feelings are completely valid. It is their experience. Yes, their experience might be tainted by their whole life experience, their projections of core wounds onto the present moment. We all have a subjective experience, all of us. And this is a very important point to understand for the dismissive avoidant, that validating somebody's feelings doesn't mean that what they are saying is God's truth. that it is correct and that it is the law. It is simply understanding their experience. It is putting ourselves into their shoes and going like, okay, let me think about this. This person had this type of childhood. Maybe their parents got divorced. Maybe they moved to a different country. Maybe kids were really terrible to them. They were bullied at school and they always felt excluded. All right, and I can understand how they would piece this information from our life and then make up this story in their head about what is happening right now. Okay, and whether it is a story or not, they are experiencing pain in the moment, emotional pain. They are experiencing discomfort, and me as their partner, I need to be there to hold that space. That what needs to be validated is their experience and their feelings. Okay, so their experience is valid, doesn't necessarily make it true. Doesn't necessarily mean that if they say, this is how I was hurt, that you have hurt them, that was your intention to hurt that person. But trying to defend and protect and deny what is happening is going to exasperate the situation. Or trying to just deny it or ignore it is going to make it grow. So we have to face it. And that doesn't mean that as a dismissive avoidant who is being now shouted at, you completely have to just take all of this. Of course, you can set boundaries and say, listen, I can have this conversation when it is calm, when we are both collected. Otherwise, I do shut down. If we cannot keep it calm, I'm going to go for a walk. And this is why I usually tell my clients to have conversations about conflict, or have a conversation about how to have other conversations that are more intense. So set some ground rules about like, okay, how are we going to handle conflict? And know your conflict points. You know yourself by now. If you've been in a relationship for a while, you know the dance, you know the common pattern. And if you've been doing a lot of research on these type of relationships online, you also know the commonalities of what can come up in the anxious and dismissive avoidant dynamic as well, right? It's mostly that the anxious preoccupied wants more love and connection, and the distancer wants more distance and freedom and space. So these two people can definitely make it work. However, there is a certain amount of compromise, where the fearful avoidant or the anxious preoccupied, who is the pursuer, needs to understand that the other person also has wounds. And even though their behavior might be hurtful, the distancing behavior might be hurtful, as a person, we need to still learn how to communicate in ways that are not as triggering to our partner. We have to keep their wounds conscious. Okay, so we need to learn how to move through conflict in a calmer way. Because for the fearful avoidant and the anxious preoccupied, they must probably have experienced some kind of shouting at home and criticism. So they are a little bit numbed out to it. They don't see it as a big deal. Fearful avoidance and anxious preoccupied, when they are in relationship together, they can fight. It can be a very passionate big fight, but then they can kind of resolve things and feel soothed a lot quicker than the dynamic between the anxious preoccupied or the fearful avoidant and the more avoidant partner, because there is less of that emotional connection, right? So this is usually what happens in fights as well, why the pursuer can want to fight with their partner. They want their partner to react just because they want to share the same emotions with them. And that feels like it's very connecting. And this isn't done consciously. On a subconscious level, they want their partner to have some kind of emotion that they can connect with. And usually dismissive avoidance will shut down their feelings, so there is no emotion. And this is why it takes a long time for the anxious preoccupied and the dismissive avoidant to actually come to a better place after an argument, is because they're not sharing those emotions that can be soothed and resolved through just getting stuff out in the open. So the anxious preoccupied and the fearful avoidant really need to understand that they need to be calmer in the way they explaining things, they need to use I statements, which are not triggering. The dismissive avoidant will usually listen if you use I statements, saying things like, this is my experience. I'm not blaming you. I am not saying that you did all of these things. However, this is how I experienced it. This is why it hurts me. So the anxious, preoccupied, and the fearful avoidants really need to get those self-regulating skills to learn how to sit with all of their emotions, process that in their body, and understand what is actually happening. What is the emotion? What is the need that is unmet? And how do I communicate that without blame, without shame, without criticism, without shouting? And then a dismissive avoidant, on the other hand, needs to understand that not everything my partner says, every emotion that my partner expresses, is a criticism on me. They are not attacking me by simply saying like, hey, you know what? When you don't message me for a long period of time, I feel really insecure. This is a very healthy way of communicating and letting your partner know how your behavior affects me. So if a dismissive avoidant partner is still taking that as criticism that is directed at them, that means that they need to still do their inner work so that they can listen to other people's emotions and experience and not take it so personally and make it mean that there is something wrong with them, that they are defective, because that comes from a core wound as well. And this is where secure functioning is so important, because secure people can listen to other people's experiences and they can decide like, oh, okay, this part of it is my fault. This part of it is this person's experience and how they're perceiving it. However, we can still work it out and see how we can meet in the middle, because we can focus on what works for both of us. And a secure person can also say like, you know what, this is actually not working for me and I can't provide whatever this person needs, or this relationship is not fulfilling me, and they will speak directly, openly about that, where the insecure attachment styles unfortunately do not. Okay, so first step is hear your person, hear the pursuer. If you're on the receiving end of some kind of protest behavior, hear it. Okay, what is your partner experiencing it? Of course, put a necessary boundary saying like, hey, I can't hear you when you're shouting at me. It makes me feel really unsafe. Please, can we tone it down a notch? If we cannot, I'm going to leave for 30 minutes and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to try to discuss this with you in a calm, cool manner where we can both listen to each other and we can create that connection that you're looking for, because that's also what I want from you. If things from the past are coming up, pause and go like, why is that coming up for you again? I can see you bringing it up. What is it in there that I didn't hear, that you would like me to hear, that you would want me to see? Let's talk about that and let's solve it so that we can move past this point. The other thing is speak vulnerably. Okay, so vulnerably means this is how I feel, naming an emotion, connecting it to a need. So when you don't come home on time, I feel lonely and I feel rejected and I need reassurance, or I need us to communicate so that I know what time you're going to be home. I need to know that you are going to be late so that I can go out and see my friends or make other plans and I'm not waiting for you at home and I don't get exasperated. Are you able to communicate that with me? Are you able to do that? And that is a conversation to be had. This is a vulnerable conversation. Setting boundaries is also a vulnerable conversation because it tells people how we feel and where we end and where they begin. So learning these tools of validating our partner, making them feel heard, also speaking about our vulnerable feelings and needs, and learning how to really make your partner feeling heard by saying like, oh, I can understand why you're experiencing this. What you're going through makes complete sense. Then ask your partner, are you willing to hear my side of the story? Asking that is not so much that you need permission to speak. However, when we ask the person, are you willing to listen to what I have to say? and maybe give you a different perspective, they have a choice. And the minute they have a choice and they can think about it and say like, yes, they become more open to receiving what you have to say to them. So basically, validate each other's feelings, talk about personal experience instead of blaming or criticizing, make your partner feel heard by validating them, saying, yes, I have heard this. I think I said that again. And speak vulnerably about your feelings, your needs, and then boundaries, and that's how you will cut down your conflict. Let me know how it goes. Thank you so much for all your amazing comments. I love it, guys. You're so funny in the comments. There was this one comment about how some people skip my videos because you can't see that I'm dressed, and I love that. Like, you guys give me the best advice for my YouTube channel, and I know that it's here to help me grow as a content creator, and I love how we have this connection. So yes, I am wearing clothes, even though sometimes my hair covers my straps. So usually I've got like a strappy top on because I'm in South Africa, and so fortunate to live at the coast. It's called Dolphin Coast. I'm living in Belito. It's a little beautiful city, and it's usually quite warm. So it's winter now. It's like 10:30 and it's 22 degrees outside. So we're very, very blessed. But yes, it does sometimes look, because of my hair, that I'm not wearing clothes. So here it is. I've changed the angle a little bit. Keep your comments coming. I love them. I love to read them, guys. I appreciate you so much. And ask me your questions down below so that I can answer them. And I will see you soon. Let's shift from surviving to thriving together and lead lives of love, safety, and freedom. I'm sending you big, big love.